Hello, fellow wargamers and history buffs. It is Eric, and I am very excited. Today, I have Mark Hinkle from New England Simulations, and we are going to be talking about his forthcoming game, Winter's Victory. So without any further ado, let's welcome Mark to the show, and here we go. Hello, Mark. How are you?
Hello. How are you?
I am fantastic. I'm so happy to actually get this organized, and we're crossing our fingers that technology will pay off for us better than it did for Governor DeSantis and Elon Musk the other night. So,
well, yeah, let's hope.
Well, I doubt we'll have 500,000 people trying to tune in for this broadcast, but we'll see where we're at. So. So Mark, we've got some people watching right now, and over the course of time, people, if you have any questions, viewers out there, just go ahead and post things there on the comments, and I'll be reading your questions as we go along, and posting those up there. But Mark, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? How long have you been wargaming? How did you get into wargaming?
I've been wargaming for quite a while, since the mid-1970s.
Okay.
I got started in high school just about the time everybody else does. And before that, though, I was playing these Milton Bradley games, American Heritage games.
Okay.
Some of us older guys might remember. And there was Battle Cry, which was a Civil War game, and a Dogfight, and all those. And that kind of was the seed that kind of got me interested in history. And so I ran across an Avalon Hill game in a department store when they were selling them in department stores in those days, and I think it was Africa Corps.
Okay.
And
it's a classic.
Yeah. So and then I got most of them. I got Stalingrad and the Russian campaign, and on and on. You got Guns of August, and and I was a modeler too. So I did scale models, and I think in a modeling magazine, I saw an ad for SPI and Strategy and Tactics. And I decided, well, I'll put down my $8 and get a year's subscription.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Maybe it was $6, but I don't know. It wasn't a lot. And I started getting this magazine with this game in it, and I was hooked. It was, and one of the ones I got, early ones I got, was Borodino.
All right.
And I just played that over and over, solitaire, and with a couple of friends that I knew. And there was Napoleon at War, and I started getting interested in Napoleonics at that point, and World War II and Civil War and ancients and everything else. It was just but then I started reading a little bit about it, and one thing led to another, and I just got totally immersed in the history game. So and I bought Chandler's book Campaigns of Napoleon.
Right.
You know,
It's another classic. Yeah.
one of the Bibles, and it was a great read, and I just wanted to learn more about it, and
Okay.
and so that was pretty much the early stages. But back in those days, I was buying just about every game I can get my hands on. I can't do that now.
Right. No,
I
no.
can't. I can't
It
even
would be
afford my
nice. We
own game.
wouldn't be hard to find a place to store all of it. That seems to be
Right.
the biggest challenge for most of us. So, what I don't know anything about your professional career or anything like that. I presume game designing is not your day job.
No,
What
no.
do you do professionally, or what had you done professionally?
Right now, I'm working for a pharmaceutical multinational as kind of an assistant brand manager for one of the divisions. It
Okay.
sounds way more important than it is. Um,
Well, hopefully
you
they
know,
pay you way more important than
No, well, yeah, that's been part of the problem.
well,
But yeah, I basically make sure everybody's using the logo correctly, and all the kids are coloring with the right colored crayons and
right.
things like
Okay.
that. So I maintain brand standards, and people in the company, marketing people, and others come to me in order to. I help assure that the logos and the brand for the company are executed correctly.
Okay.
But I started life as a graphic designer and technical illustrator.
Okay.
So
Well, that's certainly helpful
yeah,
then with your game design.
right.
So that leads us into when did you found New England Simulations? What's the backstory with that?
Well, I wanted to do I liked the old Napoleon at War system and Napoleon's Last Battle Squad and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one on Wagram that was a small folio game, and I wanted something a little more meaty. And I decided, well, I'll try and do this myself. And I created it. I just made up this mock-up, and then I had enough graphic skills that I could prepare it for printing. That was back in the days before computers.
Right.
So, and I had a couple of friends of mine who wanted to go in with me, so we pooled our money and we put ads in the magazines at that time, Fire and Movement and some of the others. And lo and behold, people are, sending me letters with checks in them. And so I have a local printer that's very good, and we just did it. I forget how many we produced. I don't think we produced a lot, maybe 1,000 or 1,500 or something like that.
Okay.
And,
That's a decent number. Yeah.
sold them fairly quickly, and went to the game conventions with them, and other people in the industry were kind enough to front them in their booths for me.
Right.
Clash of Arms, Ed Wimble was
Right.
very kind to me in those days, and well, I mean, he still is, but no, Ed's a great guy, and he just put them up there, and bing, sold out. Didn't want anything for it or anything, and he said good luck. And
Well, cool.
so
when was this approximately?
this was 92.
Okay.
92, 93. That was Napoleon on the Danube. That was the
All right.
Wagram game, and it was a Ziploc.
Yeah. No.
Easy to package, easy to mail.
Right.
And then I did another one a few years later on Dresden.
Okay.
On the Battle of Dresden, and that did pretty well. I still have copies of those because I probably printed a little too many of them, but that's okay. It's
Now, just out of curiosity, what's the scale of those games? Are they
those are brigade level.
Brigade level? Okay.
Yeah, 440, 450, 60 yards a hex or something like that. Yeah, so I did that. I did Dresden, and I did a little something different with those. I just didn't copy the system. I added a step reduction to it, because I never like this idea that one strength unit, you get around them, it gets a retreat, it eliminates this huge unit.
Right.
And so I did a kind of a neat little step reduction system that is easy, but it works pretty well.
Okay. Okay.
And then I did Killing Ground after that, and that was well received. Got some Charles Roberts nominations for that.
Oh, very good.
And then I did Overlord, which was a tack on to Killing Ground. Killing Ground was Fallet Pocket, and Overlord was the D-Day part that goes on to it. So that's kind of a 3-map game. And then I did Overlord, after that. And then we did Jaws of Victory not too long ago, a game called Jaws of Victory, which is Corson Pocket.
Right. And so this one, Alan, aka Stigler, has written, "It's hard to beat NES for production quality. I'm still in awe of the Jaws of Victory package." So you've got at least one impressed person out there with the quality of your production there. So
thank you, Alan. Yeah, I thank everybody. I mean, our customers are just, I don't think of them as customers. I think of them as, friends, as, we're all in this together. It's a pretty small community, and
it's true.
We and everybody's been very, very kind to me, in my little tiny company here. So,
Well, we've got another question. Perry is asking, will Killing Ground be re-released?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's gonna be yes.
It's gonna be a few years, but yes, we have plans. I have some close associates here at NES that would like to take that on as an action item, and we'll be doing it as I think the vision is going to be, or my vision would be, to combine that with Overlord, put it in a single box, do I know this is going to sound funny to some people, but kind of ramp up the production values a little bit, and just kind of reissue it. There's probably some Order of Battles things that we want to look at, kind of fix some things that we didn't like, but basically it's going to be the same. The map's going to be a little bigger, but the counters are going to be smaller, so that there's not going to be as much crowding on the map. That was kind of an issue for some of the gamers before.
So it sounds like you've done some Napoleonics, you've done some Second World War stuff. Are there any other genres of time periods that you guys have touched?
I'd like to do an American Civil War game sometime. I'm not sure what or how, but I'd like to do, I'd like to have somebody do the design work for me. I have approached Dave Powell, and we were talking one time down at in Baltimore at a convention, and he said, "Oh yeah, I'll do it." But situation and time being what it is, we just can't get together. But that's in the back of my mind.
Right.
But I've got On Hell's Highway coming, which is the re-release of John Butterfield's Hell's Highway game.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I'm very excited about that. Very thrilled that John and I connected on that. So that's that's going to be the next one after Winter's Victory.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's good.
I
And
can only do
usually,
one at a time. That's part of the problem.
right. So is it mostly you? You're a one-man show? Is that the way of thinking about it there, or do you have a couple of
Well,
people that help out?
I am, but I have a number of good friends, close associates that give me a lot of support and a lot of help, and they are just fantastic. I just can't say enough about them. The games would not, and like Milchanowski, he did the game design for Jaws of Victory. He's been just great associate for me,
Right.
and but some of these other guys, these in-house play testers and stuff, they're actually doing some development assistance work and stuff like that, and they're way smarter than I am. So I say something like, well, I want it to do this, or I want it to feel like this, and they're programmers, and they're analysts, and they got all kinds of letters after their names and stuff,
Right.
and they figure out the some of the details that I'm not. Uh, I just go by feel, and then they come back and say, Milchanowski used to do this to me all the time. I would say, well, he said, well, where did you get these numbers for these chits and stuff? And I said, well, I just, this just feels right. And he grabs them all, and then he does this statistical analysis and bell curves and all this stuff. And he says, well, you're off over here. And so I
Right.
said, okay, let's smooth it out. That's fine. I'm perfectly happy to, take that assistance.
So
but I got a great team.
yeah. So with the different games that you're designing, are you usually coming up with your own rules and mechanics, or are you
No,
doing stuff based on some other systems that you've come across before?
no. I make no apologies for taking somebody else's engine and putting it in my car.
Okay.
I mean, Red Bull Racing, they're the constructor, but they're putting in a Honda engine, or they're putting in a somebody else's engine. I don't,
Right.
And then I do some things to it. I don't, if I think that something needs to change for the sake of the historical situation, or maybe make it the game that I would rather have, then I make a change. But
Hmm.
I I it's a soft touch for me.
Right.
I there are game systems I like, and like that Victory in the West system was
Right.
one that I used Killing Ground from, but it wasn't working for that situation, so I had to change some things, and it kind of evolved. And then when we went to Jaws of Victory, Milchanowski, he said, geez, this has to be different. And, he said, oh, well, okay. And that was the first time where I really let somebody else control the game design. And that was hard to do, but it was good. It was great. He did a great job, and it sold well. It got Charles Roberts Award for Best World War II Game, 2020.
Congratulations. Yeah.
Yeah, a couple of graphics awards. I got some award from some big club in Italy for NES did for JOV. So it's done well. It's
Very
done well.
good. Well, and that leads us into perhaps the question here that Perry has posted, which is, what Napoleonic system does Winter's Victory use, or is it unique? I'm on order for it and am a recent convert to Napoleonics. So let's start talking about Winter's Victory. What can you say?
Well, it's based on an old game that SPI did on the Battle of Waterloo called Wellington's Victory. And when I bought that game, when it first came out, I think it was 76 or something like that, maybe 75. I was completely captivated with it. You know, I had played, I'd gotten a couple of the Labatai ones. I got that the GDW Moscow
Okay.
game, which I think was a very early iteration of that.
Right.
And the Marshall Enterprises came out. I got the Austerlitz one, you know. So I did some of those. I liked Terrible Swift Sword, you know, and they were good, you know, they still are. You know, they got a great franchise going, you know, people like that system. But the Wellington's Victory system was very different, and it's a more integrated sequence of play. And, you know, some people are not as ease with that as others, but I took to it like a duck to water. And
Okay.
I just thought it was, you know, a lot of fun. There's a lot of interaction, and in the middle of the sequence of play is this single reciprocal combat phase. So it's an asymmetrical sequence of play, and that kind of
Hmm.
throws some people off. I think it works pretty well, and there was kind of this justification for it because of the differences between the way the British and the Allies fought and the way the French fought. And there's been a bit of, you know, it's been a lot of discussion around that. But I think it works pretty well, but I'm not sure if I'll continue with it. I did that for this game because I wanted to show the difference between the way the Allies or the Russians fought and the way the French fought,
Okay.
particularly in 1807, 1806. So there's big differences in the armies, and we bring a lot of that to Winter's Victory in this Battle of Eylau.
Okay. Well, cool. Yeah, I think back in the day, 40 some odd years ago, I think I did play Wellington's Victory. I had a friend who had it. So I may have played it once or twice, but to be honest with you, I can't remember much about it. Back then, I was very lucky. I was playing a different game almost every week with somebody different.
So was I.
Yeah. And so you're like, oh, this is cool. Okay, great. Here's the next game. Let's play that. So with Wellington's Victory, why don't you tell us a little bit, not with Wellington's Victory, with Winter's Victory.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about the scale of the hexes and the scale of the units and things like that?
The units are battalion level, and the hexes are 116 yards per hex, hex side to hex side.
Okay.
And the hexes are a little bigger on the game because the counters are 9/16 inch. So they're a little bigger than half
Okay.
inch, which is nice for older people that are having trouble seeing. And like myself. And 15 minutes a turn.
Okay. Yeah, I've got a couple of images here with the counters
right.
from your website. Did you have a picture that kind of shows us maybe the map and the counters together so we can get a sense of the scale there? I know we got a map here. This is a really nice looking map.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us about this, and then we'll go on to maybe another slide.
Yeah. This is one of the maps. It's the southwest. It's the southwest map. It's the road leading up to Eylau. And let me see if I can zoom in on that a little bit. And that's the town. The lakes are frozen, and they're depicted as just kind of outlines.
Okay.
So they're the same terrain as the surrounding terrain. And here's a close-up of the town. Maybe I can get a little closer here. There we go. Oops, too close.
Well, here, let me see if I can refresh.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because it's still showing. Let's see. Oh, yeah. It looks
No?
about the same here on my end of
Really?
things. So, yeah. So,
Oh,
well, this is the
that's too
joys
bad.
of technology.
Yeah, because I wanted to show people some of the terrain features, but the elevations are depicted as you see. The darker is the higher.
Mhm.
The lower is the lighter. And
Yeah, I've got a
and
little bit.
there's
Okay.
some, yeah, wow.
Well,
Wonder
no
why that's not.
worries.
No, that's too bad. Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
So
So there's 4 of
I
these,
can,
and
yeah,
it
okay,
depicts the whole
4,
battlefield.
right. So how
Yeah,
large
there's
does it
4
all kind of
4
map out?
maps,
So it's what, about
about
4 by 4? Is it
48
about 6
by
by?
48 by 60 inches, something like that. 48 by
Okay.
56 inches, something like that. So
Okay.
it'll fit
So
on a 4 by 8 sheet, or it'll fit on a table. And
okay.
so I can pull up another
Well,
one.
cool. And so then the next question is, why did you choose the Battle of Eylau? What was it
Well,
that made that interesting or a subject
I'd
for you?
read about it once. It was fascinating. It was, I just found it to be interesting. And when I was looking around for a battalion level game to do, um, I thought this would be a good choice because it was not a big battle.
Hmm.
You know, it's not small, but it's not. It wasn't huge. So I thought, size is good. Situation is interesting, and this should be, fairly easy to do. I mean, I knew I
Okay.
had the game system all set, and I knew what I wanted to do, and so I just started putting it together, and that was about 12 years ago, and it's I've had some interruptions in between. I've
Right.
lost about 5 or 6 years of, you know, professional, personal, and gaming things that I had to do. One of them was getting Jaws of Victory out.
Okay.
So um, that's why it's kind of taken so long. But one of the good things about that is that the gestation period has allowed me to kind of put it aside, come back, look at some things, make some changes. Um, One of the things that we did just a few years ago was in Wellington's victory. The reciprocal sequence of plays that the artillery fires first, then the infantry, and then the
Okay.
skirmishers, right?
Right.
And we turned that around. In Winter's victory, the skirmishers fire first, the infantry fires next, and then
Okay.
the artillery fires last. And that works very well because during movement, the artillery is the only arm that really fires continuously at units when
Hmm.
they're approaching. So they're getting much more fire combats in than the infantry does. And so if the
Right.
infantry survives getting close to the artillery, then they get the shot off first.
Right.
And
But they've already suffered a whole lot of other stuff in the meantime.
probably, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are there, what other changes? I mean, because you'd mentioned that with Wellington's victory kind of rule set, you liked how it could help maybe amplify the differences between
Right.
the two different nationalities, the French system, and then more of the linear system that the Prussians and the Russians were using in 1807.
Right.
So what are some of the things that you've got to that? How did you modify the Wellington's victory to adapt it to this particular battle and this national
I
system?
wanted to give the Russians the shock advantage and the French the fire advantage.
Okay.
So that's the opposite of the way it is in Wellington's victory. So the sequence of play is the same. I just changed, when people move and when they shock attack and that kind of thing.
Okay.
So the Russians and I had to separate the fire tables. So there's a separate French fire table and a Russian one. The Prussians use the French fire table as well.
Right.
Because their fire was pretty good actually. And then there's a separate artillery fire table where in Wellington's victory it was all the same table.
All right.
So I've kind of parsed that out and added the nuance of the separate ones. So the Russians, their fire is not as effective as the French.
Mm-hmm.
But when they get into shock combat, they are difficult. They are tough
Okay.
in a shock combat situation. They believed in the bayonet, and so they get a slight boost for shock combat, but the French get the fire.
Okay.
So so you're playing them in a little different way. And the Russians, of course, have a preponderance of artillery.
Right.
They have about twice as much artillery as the French do. And but the French artillery is a little more accurate at longer distances.
Okay.
So we've kind of added all those nice little nuances to the combat systems. We've gone to a 10-sided die instead of a 6-1, and this helps the effectiveness ratings, because I could expand the effectiveness ratings of the units and do some nice little neat things. So there's you compare effectiveness ratings when you go into shock combat, that melee combat. But like for light cavalry, their effectiveness rating is lower than heavy cavalry.
Okay.
So, but their morale is just as good. So there's a little superscripted number on their effectiveness rating that when you roll for morale, you just add that superscripted number. But when they're in shock combat, they're lower effectiveness.
Right.
And what you want to do is save your light cavalry for the end game, when all these infantry units are run down and disordered and exhausted. And because if you use them early, then you're just throwing away their advantage.
Right.
So
They got to wear down, and
right.
the infantry then's kind of softened up a little bit before you send in the cavalry or whatnot.
Yeah.
So now I know that with Eylau, it's very tough for the Russians because you've got Davout coming in. I guess it's on their left flank, and kind of turning their line there. Do you find that with your with the game and the playtesting you've done, things kind of play out in a historical way in most regards, or does the Russian player have a chance to do
Yeah.
something different?
We've had some good playtest sessions where Davu comes off map from the
Mm-hmm.
south, and he hits Bagavoot on that left side, and he's facing southwest, so he has to pivot around to meet the French third
Right.
corps as they're coming up there. And there's an order delay system where they just can't turn around on a dime. You have to send them an order. You have to activate Davu. He activates down to his subordinate command units,
Okay.
and it's a fairly easy kind of delay system. And then once they're activated, they come off of the fatigue chart, and you put them on the map,
Right.
and then that's when their fatigue starts. The meter on their fatigue starts running.
Right.
But yeah, we played a great one, and there's a one map scenario that is exactly that situation. So it's a great little one map scenario.
Well, cool. And that was when my other question was, I know given the size of the maps, having all four of them laid out, I know that there's a lot of people that, don't have as much space to
Sure.
do that, or they might not have time to play the whole battle. So how many scenarios do you have altogether?
We have 4 altogether. There's
Mm-hmm.
2 single map scenarios. One of them is the 7th of February scenario, the run up to Eylau, and Bagration's rear guard defense of
Right.
Eylau. And that's a nice little scenario, because the Russians are trying to get their remaining artillery through the road through Eylau before the French can take it, but the French don't know that. And it took us a while to figure out how to kind of make that work, but it does. And then there's good decisions on both sides. There's some hard decisions on both sides, and that's a fun scenario. And then there's the other single map scenario is the southern map that has Davu coming on off map and hitting the Russian left side with
Okay.
Osterman Tolstoy is in command of that wing, and they have to keep Davu from going off of the north edge of that map and going on there. So
Okay.
and then there's the Battle of the 8th, which is the Battle of Eylau, which is
Right.
a 4-map game. And then there is a more of a freewheeling. There's a scenario that connects the 7th and the 8th, and there's going to be 2 ways of doing that. There's going to be, you play the 7th scenario just on that single map, and then the losses and everything that happens on that get transferred to the setup for the 8th.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one is going to be a more free-form type of battle that actually connects the 2 as a 4-map game. You start with the 7th, and then you just kind of do more of what you want to do. There's going to be less restrictions. There's going to be less scripting
Okay.
of the game. And
So therefore, the Russian player has a chance to do things a little differently,
right.
and not be sort of nailed down in place per se.
Right. He's
Okay.
going to be restricted by some things, like their fatigue's going to be pretty high on the 7th. So
Right.
for them to maybe launch a counterattack on the 7th and stuff, particularly where it's getting dark, we have rules for fighting in the dark and the night. We have weather rules. The weather rules are very cool.
Mhm.
And we have again, Milt Chinosky, he's a great guy. He kind of did the subsystem for the weather.
Right.
And actually,
Yeah. Do you have anything you can share with us that's got
yeah.
that?
Let me yeah. Can you see this now?
So it's still just showing me the map. So I
Wow.
wonder if you
Because I'm going to a different map. Do I have to do something? Maybe?
Well, let me see here. Let me go ahead and yeah, you might need to just like refresh the presentation.
Okay.
And just discontinue that one. Uh-oh. Well, that was a little too much. I think he clicked on the wrong button, made himself disappear. All right, technical difficulties. Here you are, you're back again. You clicked the wrong button,
I
made yourself disappear.
wrong button. Right.
So, yeah, but on the bright side, so go ahead, hit the present button again, and then go ahead and bring up, then I guess it was monitor
Okay.
2, and that should then have, hopefully, the updated, refreshed image. It just looks
Yeah.
like it's not refreshing the image when you're doing stuff. And as I said, this is my first time kind of messing around with this in this much detail, too, so everyone will be very patient. Is Martin Sample a gentleman who has been helping you with the game?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
he's been answering some questions for some people. I wanted to make sure he was a legitimate person.
Yes.
Because we had some people asking about the weather, the weather system,
right.
and he seemed to like have details. So I figured he probably knows what he's talking about. We had some people asking about solitaire games,
Yeah.
or how to play it solitaire. So Martin had posted something about that too.
Yeah, I think you could. I mean, you
Yeah.
got to be honest with yourself, but yeah.
Well, my usual saying regarding, playing solitaire is, the wargamer who plays a solo game has a fool for an opponent. So, or something like that. It's the
Yeah.
old variation on, somebody who represents themselves in court. All right. So we've got this lovely picture here of, looks like part of the map, and it's got, oh, good. We got stuff moving around. Okay.
Oh, you can
Okay,
see
we'll
that
just
now?
I can see that now, yeah, for
Oh,
whatever
okay,
reason, it's
good,
moving
good,
around
good.
now, so
So, I wonder if this will work then.
yep, it's zooming
Yes.
in. Awesome, hooray.
Great. So, this is good because I can show you
Oh,
some of
now,
the
yeah, this is great, we can see a lot more detail
detail
on the map. Yes, beautiful.
description. Um, these are wetlands.
Mhm,
You can see over there. And it's a sequence of play on the
okay,
side of the map. And then this is the weather chart.
okay.
And it looks more complicated than it is. But all you do is you have a prevailing wind that you set at the beginning of the game, and that doesn't change. And then you have a current wind that will change 60 degrees depending on a die roll. You have a random die
Mhm,
roll. And then you're facing, I don't know if you could see this diagram here for the facing, you're facing
yep,
will
yep, we
determine,
can see that, yeah.
maybe I can get in a little closer. The facing, depending on, because the wind is more important than the snow.
Right.
People, it's good that we're actually doing this game because here in New Hampshire, because like, I know Marty does winter camping, Ken Gurn, who is another close associate of ours that's been a big help. He does snowshoeing. I do cross-country skiing in the winter. So we all have winter activity experience. And that informed a lot on what we thought about the weather and what the effects of the weather is going to be in the game. And very early on, we all looked at each other and we said, it's the wind, and so if you have snow coming down, if it's coming straight down, there's no wind, then everybody's pretty happy. But if you have a breeze blowing into your face, into your eyes, the snow hits your eyes and it's hard to see. So it's also about, the fouling of the weapons and that type of thing, because snow is wet. But snow, there's different kinds of snow, and we understand that. There's very light snow, and there's very what we call dry snow, and there's very wet snow. So, and all this is, we thought about all that when we were doing the weather. And if we go to the here, when the snow event starts, you roll randomly for the snow event, and then the snow event will start. If it starts, then you put a marker here. You're starting with light snow, and then these are the modifiers as you go up, and then you keep rolling, and you could have just light snow, or you could have heavy snow, or you could get to a blizzard. And if you get to a blizzard, the whole place practically shuts down. Turns go fairly quickly.
Because it looks like your line of sight is reduced to like 1 hex.
Yes.
In a blizzard, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
And then you get to the end, and it can stop. So that snowstorm at Eylau, we estimated, or I figured from the narratives that I've read. James Arnold has a great book on the Battle of Eylau called Crisis in the Snow. Highly recommend it. And that whole event probably didn't last more than an hour and a half. So this idea that it was snowing all the time during the battle and all that, that just wasn't true. And the ground, the amount of snow that was on the ground, that I've had a lot of issues with, because people talk about, well, there was 3 feet of snow at Eylau, and that's a lot of snow. I mean, we deal with snow here in New England, and I can tell you, if there was 3 feet of snow at Eylau, there would have been no Battle of Eylau, because that's just way too much snow.
No one could move.
Right. So,
considering most of the men at the time are 5'6", 5'8", 5'10", they're that's half of them are buried in the snow there. So,
but
cool.
It was pretty rough. The conditions were pretty bad. It was cold. There was a brisk breeze, northerly breeze, and then it starts to snow on them. But with all that, again, our experiences in snow activities really informed us a lot on what you see in the game. And for example, the streams that you see, those weren't just covered up with snow. There was open water.
Right.
So, and they're quite treacherous, because you can't see where the edges are and things like that. So we have a artillery breakdown table, things like that. So,
so the weather and terrain and stuff like that definitely are playing into the situation, and kind of on an ongoing basis, so you don't know from one turn to the next what you might be getting. Do you have it where like the storm kind of clears at a certain point during the day?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's limited to the time. I mean,
Mhm.
the time of the storm is variable, but it's limited. So it kind of clears out. And that's how storms happen. I mean, sometimes there's really big storms, but
Right.
usually if there's just a front coming through, from the narratives that I've read, it was not a long storm.
Right.
So, a heavy snowfall is about 2-3 inches an hour.
Okay.
That's a heavy snowfall. So let's be generous. Let's say it snowed for 2 hours. You're probably only adding 6 inches of snow to the ground during the battle.
Okay. All right.
Um,
Terry asks, did the playtesting result in the historical Grand Cavalry Charge, or does the game just not play out that way?
yes, we have grand charge rules. So
Okay.
you kind of have to set it up. It takes some work, uh, but it works. And the grand charge, in actuality, was a series of 3 separate large charges. So Marat took the Grouchy and the dragoons in first, and then that was the first front end of the charge. And then the second phase of the charge was with the cuirassiers. And then the third phase, after Marat got himself in trouble with all these fine horsemen,
Right.
the guard was sent in with Bessier in the guard. And that's how it's set up. And it runs across 3 separate shock combat phases.
Oh, okay.
And so you set it up. The first wave goes, the second wave and third wave follow behind during the shock phase, not during the movement phase. And then the second shock phase, you do it again.
Okay.
And then the third shock phase, you do it again.
Wow.
And so it takes 1.5 turns to complete it.
Wow. Okay. And so
Yeah,
therefore it's in a lot of ways really feels like it has the flow of the historical charge,
right,
where it's not just
right.
one thing, but you have that sequence of the
Yeah.
regiments going in. Terry's
And
got
you're
another
probably going
question.
to
Oh,
lose about half your cavalry too doing it. So,
that's par for the course. We got another question from Terry. Are there restrictions deploying the Imperial Guard infantry, that is Napoleon's Guard? Is there a variant where Ney arrives early, or Davout or the Prussians arrive late? So how are you kind of handling things with reinforcements and any sort of restrictions on?
yeah. Oh, sure. There is restrictions on the guard. The restrictions are if you lose them, you pay a ugly price in terms
Okay,
of each in terms of the morale levels. There's each corps has a morale level, and there's a morale level track for each corps. And as you lose half battalions or battalions, that morale level starts going down, and the the Russians gain victory levels depending on how many corps they can break. Uh, the 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 morale is done by army for the Russians
okay,
because they didn't have corps. I mean, they had these divisions, but they were all sliced up and diced up for the battle. That it wasn't we weren't able to you know uh, kind of separate the units by corps or anything like that. So, but it works for the Russians. I mean, the army demoralizes. They just lose one effectiveness point, and they have some other things that happen. But for the French, they one corps gets demoralized, the rest of the army doesn't care that much.
Mhm.
So, except if the guard demoralizes.
Right.
Then if the guard gets in trouble and they, they rout or whatever, it does affect the rest of the army.
Sure.
So you have to be careful and using them. And only Napoleon can send Bessier the order to use
Right.
units, infantry units of the guard.
Okay.
Um,
Well, and at this
that's
time,
how it
the
is.
Guard is not very big. It's only
No,
what, just
no, it's not.
four,
It's got the
6 battalions or something. It's not.
there's 8
It's not a big.
battalions.
Okay.
Yes, first grenadier, second grenadier, 2 battalions each.
Okay.
First chasseurs, second chasseurs, 2 battalions each.
Okay. Yeah. So it's not like the Guard at Waterloo where you've got a whole
No,
boatload of people coming through. So
no. There's some guard artillery, and the guard cavalry, which the guard cavalry wasn't much there either. Guard cavalry was just the grenadiers of the guard, and the mounted grenadiers, and the chasseurs, mounted chasseurs. And they at that time they had a both of those cavalry regiments were split. They had expanded them and they split them
mhm.
into 2 half regiments or regiments to march or something like that.
Right.
And so I have 2 separate counters for those.
Okay. Cool.
But to get to the other question about the reinforcements, yes, there are some variable reinforcement options that players can do. And there's actually going to be 3 options for the Ney and the Lestock, the Prussians, coming on. And one even goes so far as Lestock could beat Ney to the battlefield. Or, sorry, the other way around. Ney could beat
Could be
Lestock
the stock. Okay.
to the battlefield, if you want to play that kind of an option. But yes, there
Okay.
are. And then you can redirect Davout's 3rd Corps. You can actually swing them further east and come in even further east or further west of where they actually entered. And so you could try those variants.
Very cool. There was a question that had popped up a while back I wanted to try to get to, which had to do with the Wellington's victory rule. Apparently, somebody had commented on, I guess, the original Wellington's victory. The skirmishers there was some issue with them being too powerful, or there was some issue with that. So I was just thought I'd try to get back to that, circle back around to what variations you might have done to maybe modify that to deal with.
The skirmishers, we have reduced their lethality quite a bit in this game when they're in the open. But when they act as detached light companies in obstructed terrain, like in a village or in a wooded area or something like that, their fire gets more concentrated. And so they can actually, it's a delicate question, because I think that particularly the French skirmishers were pretty good. And they were good at what they did, and they had some killing capability. I mean, it wasn't huge, but they had some. And if they're in the right situation, if they're holed up in a chateau or a farmhouse or a wooded area or something like that, again, their fire is concentrated, and so normally they're going to be firing at a class 3 unit, but if they're in obstructed terrain, they're firing as a class 2 unit. And that's one of the things I did. It's a nice little nuance, but they're really abysmal out in the open in terms of shock combat. They can't go up against cavalry or anything like that. They just get mowed down. They just route away.
Okay. So you've made some modifications with it so that it's not like an op overwhelmingly
I think
super strong.
people
Like
will
maybe
like.
the old
I think
Wellington
people,
Victory
yeah.
was. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh, definitely. Because we've introduced a morale check result in the fire combat table. Before in Wellington's Victory,
Okay.
it was 1 or nothing,
Okay.
or 2 or nothing. So um, if we have some time, if I could find the cursor, I'd be all set.
Well, this is the joy of having two screens up here. You're trying to find stuff.
Yeah.
So did you have another image you wanted to share?
Yes. Just let me
We've got somebody chiming in here. The Guard marching band was intimidating when playing their victory march tunes. There you go.
Yeah. Well, their lips got stuck to their instruments because of the cold, so we didn't include them in the game.
Yes. Musical smack talk. Oh, thank you, Alan. All right.
So can we
So it
see
looks like we
this?
got, yeah, I've got, it looks like a fire
Okay.
results table, target class 1, target class
Right.
2.
So if you look in this line, minimum range, which is 1 hex away, skirmish, right, 1 or 2, they're firing here as a class 3 unit. So their fire is reduced as if is higher in strength. You see that their fire is reduced, and they get these morale checks. They have more morale checks than, or they induce more morale checks. And the in soft cover, it starts to go way down. And then hard cover is pretty tough. I mean, you gotta get in there. And so this is just a look at the fire table, and this is the French side, and this is the Russian
Okay. So you
fire
actually have
table.
separate tables. So, I mean, I'm used to Labatai where you've got one fire table and that's for everybody, but then you've got modifiers on the quality of the troops, that kind of thing. So in this case, you've baked that into the fire table itself. So I don't have to do a lot of math in my head.
Right. And then the target class is, just what kind of target it is, column or square, they're easier to hit, or line. And then the artillery is again separated because their fire is better against units in column than in line, where the infantry is the opposite. So this is the artillery fire table.
Very cool.
And then if they're disordered, this disorder shifts you back on the table when the unit becomes disordered. And so this, what we were able to do with this is a nice little nuanced thing is, so units in line, if they disorder, they have the greatest effect. So they shift over 3. But units that are in skirmish or general order, they're being disordered is not going to be that much different. So they only shift back 1.
Very interesting.
Then,
yeah, no, that kind of gets into some nuance there with stuff that is very nice. So so we've had a couple of other questions that have popped up. I mean, one was, is there a vassal module, or are you planning a vassal module?
We are planning a vassal module.
Okay, cool. That will help a lot of us who want to have the game but might not have anyone nearby to play it with.
Right. And we're going to use, like we did for the Jaws of Victory, all the original art and art files for this game will be on the vassal module.
Beautiful.
So
well, and I know it's hard for people to see just how nice and how beautiful the maps and the counters and everything else are. I mean, when I'd seen you at ConSim, in Tempe a couple years ago, I had a chance to see you had it all laid out, and the maps and all the components were absolutely gorgeous. And so it's hard, people just looking at the screen here to get a sense of it, but it's definitely a really nice production.
Well, thank you. It's yeah, it's I think it makes a difference. I think, the quality of the art, really, you want to evoke the time period, you want to evoke, and people that play this level of game, I think they're less interested in like winning and losing, and more interested in having an experience in the gaming, that is, that aligns with their view of the history, and it's just, you want to put people into that space, you want to put people into that time, and that's what
yeah,
good graphics helps to do that.
It's evocative. So did you do the graphics yourself? Did you design this? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, I tip of the hat to you, because it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Well, good. Well, we've gone for about an hour now. I know one of the other questions that had popped up was, when is this going to be hitting the shelves? That is, when is it going to be available for people to actually receive? Okay.
Soon. It's in pre-pub now, as most people know, and we're probably looking at August for release. So
late summer, early fall.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you'll have it, for those February days when you're snowed in, and
well, when in Southern California, when I'm February days wearing a t-shirt and shorts and flip-flops, I will think about the snow blowing in my face. This is why I might be able to design a game that takes place in Spain, the Peninsula campaign. I'm used to heat, but no, I don't think I could do snow. So well, cool. So that sounds good. So then people can order it, and it's available now. And with the pre-publication price, it's a little bit less than your
yes. And not only that, when you order direct from NES, you get the deluxe edition. So
a set of steak knives.
No, you get this really cool dice pouch.
Oh, that's lovely.
And it's lined on the inside. Right?
Okay.
And then you got what's that say there? Yeah, it says Purchase Eylau, 1807, right? And then it's got Winter's Victory on the back.
Right? Okay. Oh,
and
lovely.
Then you get 2 special dice, one green and one blue.
Okay.
And then you get 2 wooden turn markers, one for the phase and one for the game turn. This is all part of it. And the best part is you get these really cool metal antique bronze arrows that go onto the map to show the wind direction. So that we found that when the snow starts, that if you scatter these about on the map, and if it changes, then you change the wind direction. And it's a good reminder that if you're facing in the wind, then you've got to make the adjustment for the fire table, or the morale, or whatever, because that's what it fixed. So you get these, this bag of arrows for the wind direction arrows. So anyway.
Well, very good. Well, that looks really cool. That looks really cool. All right. Well, before we kind of wrap things up, is there anything else that, well, here, I got another question from somebody here, from Thomas Harrison. Mark, are you still considering revisiting your brigade level Napoleonic games in the future with some new titles? And you had briefly mentioned it as a possibility.
Yes. Yes. The answer is yes. Now, hopefully I'll live long enough to get to it. Um,
Well,
but yeah, as soon as I quit my day job, the production schedule will start to accelerate.
right.
But
Well, are
yeah,
you planning on, I mean, so obviously you had done your brigade level stuff. Were you planning on doing anything else with this same sort of scale as you're doing Winter's Victory?
I
Another
would like
battle?
to.
Okay.
I would like to. I've got a couple ideas in mind. Um, I'm committed to staying with the Wellington's Victory orthodoxy.
Hmm.
We're not going to swing way out, but we're going to make some evolutionary, incremental um, adjustments as we go.
Right.
Um, and going to keep the same scale. I think I'm going to have a series set of rules after this.
Hmm.
There's just so much stuff involved in the Battle of Eylau that doesn't involve other battles, and the weather and that kind
Sure.
of stuff. So, and then these are the strength points are 55, 60 men per point, and like 45 cavalry strength
Okay.
points. Each gun strength point is one gun,
Okay.
because like there were 3 gun batteries at the battle, or half batteries. There was a lot of
Right.
half batteries going on.
I think the French had a
Uh,
fair number of them there. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, they split their horse artillery in half a lot, uh, and then the Russians, they split up their light batteries and gave them to the regiments. Each light battery is attached. Each half battery is attached to a regiment in the game.
Okay.
So it's a rich package.
It
There's a
certainly
lot there.
sounds like it. You've convinced me.
There's a lot there. Yeah.
Well, great. Is there anything else that you want to share with our audience before we wrap things up?
Um, just want to thank all the supporters of NES. It's been great over the years. I don't do a lot of games, but when I do, people seem to like them. I'm just so appreciative of people in the community that have extended helping hands to me, and and I share things with others. Um, Rick Barber, God rest his soul, he was working on an Eylau game for Hexism,
Hmm.
and he called me up. I've known him for a long time, and he said, can I have your source material, or can I have the map for that you did, your map files that you did? And I said, yeah. So I sent it all to him. And so that's the kind of hobby that this is, and that I'm really proud to be a part of. So,
Right.
and anyway, I guess
Well,
I'm
if
getting a little
the
mushy there, but
that's okay. Yeah, I mean, because it is a great group of people. I've been super happy to get out to the game conventions and meet so many people, and particularly meeting you there. And if your prototype game that you had there at Consim a couple years ago is anything like the real one, it's going to be phenomenal. So I'm really looking
yeah.
forward to it. So we've got just a few more people. Any other questions for folks out in the audience before we wrap things up? I think I've gotten everybody's questions answered, but I know that a lot of people seem impressed with things. Anything else then that you want to share?
I can't think of anything offhand. I'm gonna check my notes here. Da, 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 da. Well, uh, 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 no.
Okay. All right. Well,
So
what might be fun for us to do is maybe here in September, once I've had a chance to poke around with the game, it would be. Do you think you might have it before ConSim there in August?
that was the original target, but I
Okay.
don't know. Some of it, quite frankly, is dependent on the printer and where
Sure.
he's at, and there's some production issues that we're trying to get squared away. But that shouldn't, it might delay things a little bit, but it's not going to
Right.
delay things a whole lot. And I think it's coming together. And the team we got here at NES, they're just uh, working like crazy to help me get this thing out the door. And I can't say enough good things about them. So um,
Well, terrific.
anyway,
Well, I know that you'd mentioned that your printer's here in the US, so
yes,
that generally always means really high quality production.
yep.
Yeah.
We source our paper here. I use a premium sheet on all the components, so it's a little more expensive, but I think the game lasts longer. They're a little more durable. The maps aren't going to tear after you fold them a few times. So
We had one last question. This is from William Arens in Kitchener, Ontario, Canada. William is a regular viewer of mine. He's asking, what complexity level would you put this Eylau game at?
well, to be honest, it's got some complexity. It's probably on the same level as the La Bataille game series.
Okay.
I don't think it's any. It, when the snow starts flying, it starts to get a little more mechanically uh, laborious, but
Right.
nothing onerous, and it's worth it's worth the effort. It's very exciting, and as you're getting into the game, as you're setting up charges, as you're facing artillery, and as you're rolling for morale and routing away and making somebody else do it, it's a lot of fun.
Okay. Well, good. The last question I had was with your pre-order phase or pre-production phase for the discount and some of the other little nifty items. How long is that going to run through? Do you have a deadline for when that ends?
The
And then when
pre-pub right
yep, pre-pub.
now,
Okay, sure.
the real pre-pub is probably going to end towards the end of June.
Okay.
And then it's going to get bumped up a little bit until actual release, which is what we're calling a pre-release price, which will still be a good price. But,
Okay. But it might not
you know,
have the other little bells and whistles that you showed us tonight.
if you buy from NES, you get the deluxe version.
Oh, you do? Okay. So regardless of when you order it, whether it's now or later, you'll still get those items. But if you go through another retailer or another website, you don't necessarily get those. Okay. Cool. Well, for everyone who's out there is watching, I would say I've got the website listed here. I'll also put it down in the description of the video. So if you're watching this later, you can go and it'll take you to the Winner's Victory page there at New England Simulations, and you can then put in an order or take a look and read more details and see some of the pretty graphics for the counters and everything else. I think you'll be equally impressed. Mark, it was a great opportunity chatting with you. I really enjoyed this. I hope you
Thank
did
you
too.
very much for inviting me.
You're welcome. And I'm going to drop you for just a second here while I kind of do my outro. And then hopefully we'll be able to schedule a time that you can come back and chat some more.
I would love to do that.
Yeah. All right, folks. So for everybody who's watching, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you all enjoyed the show today. I wanted to thank Keith and Jeff for buying me a coffee. They had done that through buymeacoffee.com, Eric's Table. And then for Mark and Terry, who joined the Old Guard, that's the membership subscription that we have through Buy Me a Coffee. So if you want to support the channel, you can do that. The best way you can support the channel is just hit that like button over and over again. And if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and do that. You will make the Emperor happy. Until our next episode, everybody, be well.